Our job is we're the news crew following the police in on the bust.
Okay.
Okay? I'm standing in this little cement room right outside the main set, and it's me and John, Michael Cimino, the camera, the sound guy, and the first AD. This is my when I first stepped on a set.
And here you are with all the big boys.
All of them are all standing around me. I didn't feel like I should have been where I was.
The imposter syndrome just smacking you across
Right.
the face.
And Mikey had this great idea while we were standing there waiting, right? In my head, I'm going, I really like Michael Cimino's work. I wonder if I should tell him.
I wish people could see the look on your face.
Because
you look like you're 12 years old right
I wonder
now.
if I should tell him how much better keep my mouth shut.
Welcome to Rap Beer. I'm your host, Scott Davis. John Kretschmer is in Atlanta making a living. I'd like to say again thank you to Cinespace and Chris Crowder for allowing us to do these recordings in the old screening room at the studio. Today's guests include Mike DeVries and Francine DeCoursey. Old friends, old colleagues. Can't wait to hear what they've got to say. So again, welcome to Rap Beer, everybody. Let's go. Were you Telemedia Group before you came into the facility?
I started out as Shed Images.
Shed Images.
Well, we thought that was a good idea because we were working out of a shed.
Boy, that just puts a lot of confidence in corporate, doesn't it?
And, it was a little studio we had that we had a little camcorder and but mostly stills in those days.
Right.
And then we became Concept Video.
Okay.
We went corporate.
Were you still in the shed?
Still in the shed.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
But it was a corporate shed.
Yes, it was. In fact, in the shed, Charles at the time was also using the shed as a recording studio. And he and J.K. Lofton would go in there and drink a case of beer and produce music all night. And it was the time of, I think it was Live Aid. Charles wrote a song. And he recorded it in the shed. We did a video of it, and they aired it internationally. And this was video out of the shed.
I've never heard that story.
Oh, it's true. It was the Song for the Homeless.
He played it for Dan Aykroyd.
Was the comedy, was it?
With Whoopi Goldberg and Robin Williams.
Yeah. What was that called?
And Billy Crystal. VH1's Comic Relief.
He played it for Dan Aykroyd, who was here working on a movie. And Dan Aykroyd said, what do you want to do? He's want to do a PSA series. And Dan wrote him a check.
For $10,000, right there.
And so he was able to do Song for the Homeless.
Lost in the city at midnight, as it begins to rain. Will I ever go home again? Will I ever go home? Lost on a corner at midnight, with no place left to go. The city begins to slow. Looking down on the beggars below, we can hear you whisper, they'll get by somehow. You turn your heads and quickly move away from the window pane. You crawl into your will I ever go home again?
Well, when I first came, I wasn't sure what they would hire me to do. My very first job, but I had been a talent agent before, so casting seemed like a natural. On my first film, Trick or Treat, I met Mike standing outside a soundstage. And I asked him, so why are you in this business? He said, I want to learn the skills so I can save the world. And I went, you got my number, honey. So that was the beginning of a 40-year relationship. Because I said, I want to work with this man.
Because he wants to save the world.
And so did I. But that was the beginning of our relationship.
Right.
Because I saw, not long after, I saw Can't Let It Go. And I was blown away. Did you ever see that one?
I don't know if I...
Oh, my God. One of the most powerful videos to this day and songs that I've ever seen or heard. It was, Mike. It was. You guys were amazing. And so I said, I want to work with this guy. And so I made it my business.
Right.
They had moved offices over there on Kerr Avenue. So I went over there as a little complex, and I went over and kind of just went in and just kind of never left.
And we had a little teeny office there, and then the film business hit.
Yeah.
And we got a bigger office, and then we moved over to Strickland's Furniture. That's where JDC was. Right. We moved over there.
I didn't realize that one. Okay.
Yeah, and then Joe came back to town. He had gone back to England when everything failed,
Right.
and Carol Co bought the thing, and he decided to come back.
Right.
And so he took over my space, and we moved into the studio.
The go-getter that I was in those days, I came over to meet with Kent Swaim, who was the new
I remember
manager.
Kent, sure.
And I said, you probably need some video production to promote this place, and et cetera. He said, you make a good point. He said, in fact, I've heard of this telemedia group. Are you involved with them? And I said, yeah. He said, would they be interested in moving onto the studio lot? And I went.
Yeah, that's right. You brought the news, didn't you? Yeah.
And he said, well, let's see what we can do. So I went over to Mike and Mark. I said, you want to move on to the studio lot? And they said, oh, well, we'd love to. But I said, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I remember now. I was actually vice president of JDC in those days.
Oh, you were?
When Joe came back, I helped him get set up again, and he was set up in my office, and
Right.
I just was the guy there. We had just moved all the video stuff over here,
Right.
but I stayed over there.
Oh, you did?
I did, and I
Why?
tried to do both at once.
Oh, I see.
Well, because it was Joe Dunton.
Right.
And it was,
Don't say anything else.
and I was running a film camera shop, the video guy.
It seems like I remember dragging track up and down the
Yes,
stairs
absolutely.
over there.
Yeah.
And thinking, wow, this is really not a good thing.
Yeah. Bobby Huber was a bit really involved in all that.
Yep.
And Chunky Hughes.
Yep.
It was really the four of us that got Joe started again back.
And telemedia ended up taking this whole hallway because we had the screening room. We had offices. Margaret had an office across the hall. I had an office around the corner. I mean, we owned this place.
That was back in the day when you could still smoke.
Right.
Because I remember going into
I've got a
telemedia.
DEG ashtray, Scotty.
That's what I'm saying. I just remember going in there.
We got them for Christmas.
I just remember going in there at night for some reason. I think I was with somebody else, and you guys were working you guys were editing, and it was everybody, and it was, I could barely see the editing table from across the room.
And I was a non-smoker.
Oh God, you poor thing.
So you got to know I love these guys. 'cause
Okay,
I put up with
I
that.
apologize to everybody right now. I am so sorry.
So meanwhile, he started doing more EPKs, and one of the first ones we interacted on was Weeds with Nick Nolte.
Oh yeah.
And I had a crush on Nick Nolte. And so I did the casting on that. I started doing extras casting. And so that was a huge extras casting gig.
Right.
We had like 500 extras a day, and prisoner, black, Hispanic,
Yeah.
you know, trying to find all those people
Yeah.
and organize them was a piece of work. And Mike was on the set doing the EPKs. So that's when I started finding out that I could do the specialty act where I would do crowd scenes as fundraisers
I remember that about you.
for local charities because in the middle of Weeds, one of the main actors died, and they had already shot all of his stuff.
That's right.
And so the director came to me and said, "Can you help us? We've got to reshoot all of this." So, and a lot of them were the theater scenes and the prison scenes, and we have all these extras, and we can't pay them again. So I said, "Well, can we focus on like just the theater?" And they said yes. And I said, "Well, come to find out that Thalian Hall was in the middle of a capital campaign raising money for renovations."
Right.
So I went to Tony Brivenbark and Mary James Morgan and said, "Let's look at getting all of your patrons in to work for free in this scene, and instead of paying you, we'll make a donation to Thalian Hall restoration." And they went, "Brilliant, let's do that." And so I came to production, and they went, "Brilliant, let's do that." So we did that. So that set me on a career path.
Yep.
So for the next 15 movies I did, that's what I did.
Right.
And so I wrangled. So in that, I learned to produce because I not only was doing extras casting, but I was having to do publicity. I had to oftentimes find hair, makeup, and wardrobe for the big scenes. I had to do catering, craft service. I mean, all of that. So I learned
Yeah.
in that process how to produce. So I think the next one I did was Track 29. Nick Rogue was wanting to do this big train-orama thing out at the Railroad Museum. And they said, "We want to have a big train carnival." And they said, "Well, we haven't budgeted for a train carnival." And he said, "Well, just get somebody to put on a carnival and we'll just film it." And so my name came up because I just had the success of Weeds.
Right.
So I said, okay. So I go and I said, okay, let me get the biggest entertainment groups I can. So I got square dancers and cloggers and bluegrass bands and, you know, and then took, we secured a CSX diesel locomotive and 3 vintage passenger
Of course
cars.
you did.
You know, so we did all that, and Telemedia shot all the behind the scenes
Right.
footage, and you got to do an interview with Gary Oldman, I remember. And then the next one I did with the big crowd scene, well, several in between, but the big one was Sleeping with the Enemy.
Oh, yeah.
I did
worked
that.
on that one.
I did
yeah.
that carnival scene.
Oh, yeah.
I staged that as a fundraiser for the domestic violence shelter. I said, if we're capitalizing on something that people are suffering from, we ought to give some of that money back. And so they said, great idea. So they said, okay, let's do this. So then they sent me to Miami to meet with Amusements of America because I had to find the rides that were visually stunning.
Oh, I see. I got you.
So I went and did that, and then I lined up all these community organizations, and got Julia Roberts to do a PSA for me, and then I kind of sashayed into. I became a big buddy to a young African American family, which is another whole subset of my career.
Right.
So I just started doing all these African American films.
My first film, Mikey saw the light. I mean, it was a big deal. My first day on set, and this was Year of the Dragon, Michael Cimino directing.
Right.
The scene starts, and the scene is to run in behind the cops. Now, the film camera is behind me. And the sound guy, so there's and Cimino is like, because we're picture, we're in it, we're shooting,
Right.
we're picture. The floor has cables stacked, and it's about 2 feet wide, and there's enough cable going in there to light a room that's 50 feet long and 25 feet wide.
Right.
You understand?
Oh, yeah. And
Okay.
it's all heavy cable. And it's all,
It's not
4
video
aught.
cable.
Yep.
Yeah.
2 aught. Yep.
And they yell action, and we start charging in there, and in order to keep the camera guy from crashing and burning, because he can't see anything. He can see a little bit.
That's right.
Like this. He cannot see the floor or anything, and he's carrying a huge weight. So I stuck my hand in the back of his pants,
his belt,
right? Grabbed him,
Yep.
right? Because I'd never been in this situation before, but I thought I don't want to. If he goes down,
Yeah.
well, there's a problem. So we stumble into the room. We do it over and over again, and I think, I like this. I think I'm going to keep doing this. I think this is a good idea. On that same film, I mean, every day was an adventure, but one day in particular stands out, where it was on the back lot. And Cimino had bought a shipload of fireworks.
He did put a P on the end of that.
They came, yeah. They came from China, a whole ship of fireworks, and they were probably about a foot in diameter, with fireworks, all these cylinders.
Right.
And they hung them in the back lot.
In the air.
From the second floor all the way to the ground. So they had these tubes about a foot wide of firecrackers every 20 feet all the way up and down.
Oh my gosh.
The stage, right?
Right.
They had, I don't know how many cameras, 7 or 8 cameras. And the scene was that these 2 Chinese gangs were going to get in a brawl in the middle of the street during Chinese New Year. So being Cimino, he gets 2 real Chinese gangs.
Oh, God, you're kidding me.
No, 2 real gangs, right? And there's Mikey standing there with his video camera waiting to shoot the riot.
Now, are you
so
doing...
I mean, we're standing where the 2 gangs are supposed to meet with the camera.
You're doing EPK at this point?
Oh, no, were they in the movie?
Oh, you're still in the movie.
Oh,
okay.
yeah, I'm an actor now.
Oh, you're still an actor.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not an actor, I'm an extra. Featured extra.
All right, so anyway, gangs are there. You've got your camera.
All right, roll cameras, 8 cameras. They light all the fireworks. The gangs come together. The smoke is so thick you cannot see the hand in front of your face. I mean, literally, you go like that, you can't see a thing. Nothing. It is nothing but choking fumes. The 2 gangs hate each other.
In real life.
In real life, for real, and start killing each other, beating the crap out of each other. And it sounds like suddenly I'm in hell. I mean, I'm in hell now. Okay, and there's nowhere to go. I can't see anything. I can't breathe. All I can hear is the faint echoes of people yelling, "Cut!
You could barely hear it over the explosions and the screaming.
You couldn't hear a thing, and nobody cared at all. They yelled "cut" for 20 minutes. I'd never seen anything like it.
Oh. That's a great story.
And if you watch the film,
yeah,
that scene lasts about 12 seconds.
Yeah.
8 cameras.
I wasn't briefed properly on this subject.
And Francine can elaborate on this more than I can, but the film people there, it's like there was the film people and the Muggles.
Yes,
that's
a great way to put it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
great way to put it.
That you could and you could only talk to other film people. I mean, if you tried to talk to the Muggles about what you did during the day, they wouldn't have anything. They couldn't come back with anything. It's like, and then you know what Clint Eastwood said, and they come back with, well, I saw Rudy Giuliani in an airport. I mean, they couldn't relate to what we were talking about,
Right.
and if you carried on,
Oh yeah.
you seem pretentious.
Oh yeah, no. In the early years, I would always go back to the theater and work,
Right.
and I would go back there thinking, well, they're going to relate.
Yeah,
No, they didn't.
They
relate.
did.
They didn't relate because it was the same thing, I mean, because after Firestarter, everybody, local people that were involved in that movie, we were cool to the rest of the town. You know what I mean? Oh wow, you worked on that movie, But then when the movies came back, and after a few, they didn't want to hear about it because they were stuck selling insurance, so they really don't care.
Exactly. That we would have more excitement in one day than a lot of people would have in 2 months, and then we got to do it again the next day.
Well, I want to follow up on what you were saying about the Muggles,
Yes.
all these people that weren't a part.
Right.
Well, I capitalized on that
Oh.
because those were my extras.
Oh, sure. Because they want to see.
Everybody was curious about
Yeah.
the movie industry. So I would do anytime I was doing a movie, I would put out a calling all talent, show up at the Community Arts Center or whatever, and bring a little snapshot. Or I think we took Polaroids of everybody and come sign up to be in the movies. And they did
Yeah.
in droves.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, ironically, one of the first films I was doing was Weeds with Nick Nolte about a prison life. And I had previously met Joe Wright of the Wilmington 10. And he had told me the story of the Wilmington 10. And so I knew Connie Tyndall's name. So I had put out for Weeds, I had put out calling all prisoners, guards, and wardens, show up at the Community Arts Center and come be in the movie. Well, I'm over here doing a little bit of this, that, and the other. In fact, I had set up a video camera because I wanted to capture people front and profile
Oh, gotcha.
as, a little addition,
Yeah.
to the casting. And I heard somebody come in and say, "My name's Connie Tyndall." And I stopped what I was doing, and I went over and shook his hand, and he went, "You know me?" And I said, "Yes, sir, your reputation precedes you." And we became brothers and sisters at that moment. And but it allowed, and that really kind of got me involved with the community because it was blacks, Hispanic, redneck. I mean, every population group that you can imagine on the set. We did the prison scenes out at the community. I mean, at the Ideal Cement Factory.
yep.
Remember that?
How many extras do you think you had on that show? On that sequence?
1,500.
1,500.
We had between 500 and 700 a day, depending on what we were trying to capture.
Right.
So I had black Muslims, so I had black friends by now. So I got Connie to kind of solicit those for me. We were looking for Hispanic migrant farm workers. There weren't any at that point. So I found a guy who did migrant farm work and went out there and got them
So took them off their work and brought
and put them in the movies.
And were you paying these extras back in those days?
Yeah,
You were?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I still, the only scene I did for free for that one was the theater scene when they needed to
Gotcha.
replace that actor.
Right, when they had to come
But I was
back.
doing a lot of the paid extras.
gotcha.
But I also saw a niche because it was back in the day when people would work for free easily. They just
right.
wanted to be in the movies.
That's right. That's right.
And it gave me an opportunity to kind of raise money for a related charity. And that was the hook.
See, that is such a great hook.
That was the hook.
Chunky Hughes one time showed me a call sheet, and it was for Gandhi,
Oh, okay.
right? And on the call sheet, because you said 1,500 extras, 250,000 extras
Oh my
is
God.
on the call sheet.
Oh my gosh.
And if you look at the scene, they got more like 500,000.
But ironically, that Weeds ended up launching my activism career because I had heard about the Wilmington 10. And so at lunch, Connie would sit me down and tell me the story.
Oh.
And I was like, what? You were 18 years old, never been in trouble in your life, and now they're carting you off to prison for something you didn't do, and you ended up spending 8 years in prison?
Yep.
You know? And so he said, we need to make a movie about this. Well, that was back in the days when video was big, and film cameras were all the cameras that were available to do a movie. You couldn't do digital,
Right.
you know. So I said, man, we don't have the money to do that.
Right.
And so, but it lit a fire under me.
Yeah.
And so I started doing the research. I started aligning myself, and then I had gotten involved with the Big Buddy program and become a big sister to
Right.
8 kids, and
Right.
5 of them under 10, and they became my life. And I saw the injustice that was continuing, and I went, okay, somebody's got to do something here. I said, we'll figure it out, but we're going to get something done. But that's when it was in 1996. It was right before the 100th anniversary of 1898. And so I said, we ought to commemorate this. So about 4 of us, me and Eileen LeBlanc,
Oh, Eileen, yep.
and Kenny Davis,
Yep.
and Bolton Anthony was forming this 1898 Centennial Foundation, and we met at WHQR.
Okay.
And so we decided that this was our mission, to tell the story, honor the memory, heal the wounds, and restore the hope. So for the next 6-7 years, I tracked that. We had a big opening ceremony, and the guy who was with the TV station was there recording that. And I went up to him and said, can I get some of this footage? And he said, well, yeah, maybe. He said, my wife's on your publicity committee. And I said, okay, you're now my official videographer. So he followed me around for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
And captured all that footage,
That
45 hours. Scotty, you remember that Christmas.
He sat in my office with no heat.
And your wife would bring us hot chocolate. And we would edit 45 hours of footage down to a 45-minute piece.
Yep.
But we got it done. And God bless you for doing that. 'cause
all I
know
can say, Scotty, as an editor, 60-1 on video. Are you out of your mind?
Well, because we
You know
had,
what? I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Didn't know any better.
well, we didn't have any control over the environment because
That's right.
we would go to an event and we'd have to capture the event.
Right.
Then we'd go to the descendants gathering.
Yes.
So we couldn't tell them to be quiet,
Right.
because they were telling the stories of their generations.
Yeah.
So we just captured what we had. I logged every bit of it, as you remember.
I know you did.
And
I know you
so
did.
so when we came in, I had, hour and minute and frame.
We went through it on a pretty quick pace, because you were so ready.
I taught her everything.
Well, absolutely.
I know you did.
I will
Of course
give
you
Mike
did.
credit because I learned to edit. I learned the art of storytelling sitting
Yeah.
over his shoulder.
Sure.
And I'm eternally grateful to you for that, Mike. 'Cause
Smelling like cigarettes. Yeah,
really,
it was-
right? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it ended up being a powerful jumping off place. And then also, don't forget that you came up with the idea to do that opening bit. And so, but that really set the stage. And so thank you for that creative genius that really put a foundation to the whole
Well,
thing.
listen, working with you, working with Mike, we feed off each other.
Right.
And the inspirations come because of the working together and being in the same room.
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
but I was always very proud of having been a part of that.
Good.
And-
well, they air it every year.
Yes, but it's really funny. I'm always reminded because there's so much attention on 1898 from so many places now, and I always look back at you being one of the first people to put something together.
No, she was the first.
Yeah,
she was.
because I'll be honest with you. In high school, there was literally a class called Cape Fear History. That it was a 1-semester class, and we would get on the bus and we'd do tours of different historical. Never heard of 1898.
Right. Mm-hmm.
This is in the 70s. Never heard of it. I don't think I heard of 1898 really until you and I started first talking about it.
Well,
I think you were the first one to bring it to my attention.
we get on set, and Gene Simmons is there, and he starts just telling us about Kiss and how he got started, and it was just fascinating.
This is the whole crew?
The whole, well, not the
You know
whole
what I
crew.
mean, but it was a bunch of the crew on stage.
But the adults had to do something. There was something wrong, so so all the kids got to sit around and talk to Gene, who was more than happy to yuck it up with us, and he told us how Kiss got started. You know how he told us?
No.
He was a history teacher or something in New York, and he had formed this band, but he couldn't get an agent. The one that became his agent, he went in there, and when he said no, he jumped up on the desk and started screaming. Right?
Just screaming.
Kiss stuff. I guess. I don't know.
Like lyrics?
I don't know. I mean, I don't remember.
It just says,
he
"I
probably
started
told
screaming."
us that day, but I don't remember. But he said, that's how I got my start. Not taking no for an answer. And jumped up on there and gave the guy with both barrels everything he had. And that's how Kiss got started. George C. Scott we're working on, I think it was Exorcist 3 or 4, what it was, and we're shooting downtown in the old police station. And, it's 3 stories up. It's middle of July.
Oh, I remember that up on the 3rd floor.
Yeah, and there's no air conditioning.
No.
The building shut down. There's one air conditioner on a little side office where I had set my cart up. And there's my cart and a couch with an ashtray. And
so you're set.
I'm fine. And the actor, for the first couple of times, went downstairs and then backed up. His people set him up sitting next to me. There was room for like 3 or 4 people. And
So he didn't have to go back down to his.
so he had to go to his
trailer.
trailer.
Yeah.
It was too much.
I got you. No, I'm
too
with
much,
you now.
right? The rest of the crew that had to stay up there were taking advantage of that little covey hole as well, because you could stand around on set and do your job, or breathe for a few minutes.
Right.
And so we were all sitting around, and George C. Scott started talking about Patton.
Oh, wow.
And the other actors started figuring out what was going on there. So now we had 3 or 4 actors in there, all telling stories. And if the camera wasn't rolling, that's where they were.
Oh.
So for the 2-hour setup, we're in there listening to him talk all day long. I never got an earful more in my life.
I want to harken back to the casting of Once Upon a Time when we were colored.
Oh, please.
There's a scene in the movie that's a juke joint. One of the main characters has moved to Chicago, but he always comes back home because he misses his family, but he also misses Southern coastal blues. So as extras casting, my job is to cast all these musicians.
Sure.
So we were going to shoot it on the back lot, so we needed like 15 players. It was a big stage, and so we needed about 15 musicians. So I just put out a call. Oh, my God, the world opened up. I probably had 50 blues players
Oh, wow.
that showed up for the audition. So I had Ron Daniels, who now his family owns that bus company, videotaping all the auditions. So we had incredible performers. And but then in the middle of it, I get a call from Daphne Reed, Tim Reed, the director's wife, saying, we only need 5 people in the band now because we've lost the location.
What was the original number of people
15.
in the band? 15, okay.
And now I said we only need 5. So I'm like, how am I going to?
How heartbreaking.
So I went, you know what? Y'all all come. If you're not in the band, we'll put you in the in the club, we'll
Right.
put you at the bar, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it could have
so-
been worse, Francine. They could have told you we need 5, and then on the day said, no, we need 15.
Well, they've done that to me
That's
before.
how it used to go
Yeah.
for
That's
me.
how it's been, and I'm always
But
prepared
it
for
sounded
that.
like you loaded it up.
Yep.
You had your musicians.
That's it, just
hidden
in
in
case.
plain
That's
sight.
right, absolutely. So we get to the back lot where we're going to be filming the scene, and we're going through period hair, makeup, and wardrobe. And Charlie Lucas, I don't know if you remember Charlie Lucas, old black blues player that was famous when he had this wonderful, deep, gravelly voice. He said, go get me the guitar I'm going to be playing so I can warm up. And his son was cast as one of the players, and he played bass. And so they pulled out some metal chairs and some metal hangers and started just jamming. Well, before you know it, all the people who are going through period hair, makeup, and wardrobe hear this, and they start coming and jamming. And so Taj Mahal is in the trailer, and he hears it, and he comes and joins. And so, I mean, the people that,
Oh my God.
it was amazing. In fact, Taj would not go to the set. They called him to set. He wouldn't go. He said, I never get to sit and jam with old black
Francine's
blues.
in trouble with the AD.
Yeah, right. Really, but they said, you know, Taj said, we're loving this. So we're just going to stay here and jam. We ended up going a day over schedule
because of
that. But we had, I mean, even people like Bernard, the hair person, sang in the choir. He came and sang. This big woman came in and sang this deep, powerful voice, gospel. All these people had come from the church, you know. So it was just, I mean, I get chills just remembering it. It was one of the most powerful days I've ever had on a film set, ever. When the movie premiered,
Okay.
I convinced them to let us premiere it here at Thalian Hall.
Oh.
And so they didn't have a projection system in there, but Rafaela de Laurentiis had one in her old office, and so I convinced them to donate that to Thalian Hall. So they hadn't had a chance to run it through, but it was in place. And so we had this wonderful opportunity to screen the film, and so I called all those musicians back
Right.
to come perform in the City Hall chambers
Right.
prior to, and it was just incredible. I come to find out Taj Mahal said, I'll be there, but just don't tell my agent because he's going to want to cut, and I know you're not paying me. I called Al Freeman Jr. because he was closest. He was in Washington, and I said, by the way, your old friend Pat Hingle would love to see you. He said, how do you know Pat Hingle? I said, he lives here. He said, what? So he came down because Pat was here. So I got him dinner at one of the wonderful little restaurants, had the evening coach, horse and carriage evening coach, pick him up, deliver him to the front door of Thalian Hall, where they're met by a 40-voice gospel choir singing This Little Light of Mine.
Oh my gosh.
And then they all came in and played. First we watched the movie, but then they had a jam session in City Hall chambers. It was
What a magical.
one of my favorite times in the movie business. But, you know, it just kind of laid itself out,
Did, didn't it?
you know, and I just am smart enough to kind of connect the dots.
Francine, I beg to differ. I
What?
just listened to you talk about how you planned every moment of this whole thing. It
And it
did
just
not
somehow
just
came
unfold.
together. It just somehow came
Poof,
together.
there it was. I don't know what happened.
It was just magic. It was just magic.
Yeah, and again, the Thalian Hall, what a great facility to, you know, the history in that building
Right.
alone. So.
Absolutely. That was built by black
Oh.
craftsmen and freed slaves.
Oh yeah.
So I was able to share that story with them.
Yep.
So, but they didn't charge me anything. Al Freeman came, Taj Mahal came.
And none of 'em asked
None
for
of them
a dime.
asked for any money.
No, Francine, it speaks volumes of what you have brought to this community
Thank you.
for these last 40 years. I mean, really. And,
Thank you.
and that is a beautiful story.
I love you too, Francine. You're the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've had a long run,
Yes.
and surprises to come.
Surprises to come. Looking forward to it.
Yes.
All right, guys, thanks again. Thanks again. And there you have it, folks. Mike DeVries and Francine DeCoursey on another episode of A Rap Beer. I do want to again thank our sponsors, CineSpace Studios, again for all of your help. And I want to say a shout out to my partner, John Kretschmer, who is earning a living in Atlanta right now. I'm Scott Davis. Thank you so much for being with us today. And remember, take a breath and be kind.
Rap Beer is created and written by Scott Davis and John D. Kretschmer. The music is by Turbo Pro Project. This one-of-a-kind podcast is recorded at the historic screening room at CineSpace Studios in Wilmington, North Carolina. Copyright Bluffco Industry, 2024.